Alright, so with Palworld 1.0 out, your reasons for breeding IRL may not have changed much, however, your reasons for doing so in-game have never been higher, and that is also because of some of the brand new Tier 5 World Tree passives, a lot of which are actually downright OP. Plus, we've got new Tier 4 ones to talk about, and quite a lot of the old ones have also been changed, so we're going to dive right in with some of the best options you can get right now, including their sources. As always, if you end up finding this video useful, a sub to the channel would be awesome, and let's dive right in. And we're gonna start things off right here at the surgery table so we can see those passives a little bit better. Yeah, you're going to now have access to disposable implants as well. This implies they do get consumed every time you apply them to a pal. However, as you can see, they do give you access to the higher tier stats like tier 4s and the brand new tier 5s. Some of the sources for these implants are of course the new relic system via the relic recycler that you also get to unlock at level 74. They do have a pretty decent chance of providing these, but of course naturally they also do appear on pals out into the wild or when you're fishing, especially ones in the world tree map. They do have of course those chances of having the world tree buffs appearing on them. So let's begin with the new tier 3 ones and move on up the ranks. We have at least 4 new ones I've noticed. We have the Wellness Watcher, Healing Couch, Reload Master, plus at least a 4th one that I know of, which is the Whopper. All of them provide incremental small changes, so they won't make a big difference, just 5% to like player stamina consumption, another one to like character health regen, which again, compared to some of the 100% plus that we can get from some of the pals or some of the other passives later down the line, seems negligible at best. Reload Master just providing a 4% to player reload speed, and finally the Whopper may be useful early on because you know, you get like extra damage to water and ice and a bit of extra defenses, so it's not too shabby. However, it all changes once we start moving into the new tier 4s, with possibly my favorite being the babysitter right here, making Berloha even more useful. So while at a base, it increases egg production speed by another 30% and incubation speed by 30% for pals assigned to a breeding farm. If you put this on a Berloha, on top of the like 50% plus that one already has when maxed out, that's another 30% on top, and you also have the nice incubation speed. This is especially useful if you are a purist and don't want to change the incubation speed and just want to keep everything default levels. This is already a big game changer, especially when combined with the brand new level 76. Yeah, you guessed it, there's a new ancient hatchery over there. I'm going to talk about this in a future breeding video, but as I've said before, this is an absolute game changer. You're going to be producing eggs so much and your pals will reproduce so fast, you're kind of like going to be in a rabbit situation. Then we have the Idiosyncratic. This is a really interesting one because it gives pal and player auto health regen by plus 50%, which is actually really good. It stacks on everything else that you already have, so you can reach some insane health regeneration with your team, well, with your character as well, if you have this on top of some of the other passives. The defense buff only applies to your pal and not to your character, unfortunately. So the plus 25% over here we can see stacks with the other 20% that my pal already had, hence the 45% total, but for my character it doesn't do anything in that regard. But you do get for the pal extra immunity to poison and burn damage. There's also Immortality, which I guess is the upgrade for Vampiric. This has some pretty good stats actually, really top tier 1, lifesteal 5%, pal auto health regen 100%, and also there's a 15% extra attack. Actually a really solid option to get, and especially for like frontliner pals that use a lot and already have a lot of HP and have like really devastating attacks. That 5% healing over there can actually give quite a lot. Then there's Heavily Armored, just immunity to explosive damage. I haven't really encountered a situation in 1.0 where this was a problem, so I haven't been using it too much. But then there's also Sky Marcher, which does provide an interesting proposition for land mounts, and I'm guessing also for swimming mounts. Because if you put it on somebody like Fanglope, you now get 4 jump counts in total, with the final 2 provided by the Sky Marcher having their own unique kind of like animation and effect. They still all consume the same amount of stamina, mind you, so yeah, it does give you a lot more verticality if you're going with that, but let's be honest, in the end game it's still all about the flying ones. Which now brings us to the brand new tier 5s, aka the World Tree disposable implants. There are about 7 of them in total, and there are 2 sources for them. They also drop naturally for the pals in the World Tree map. You're going to notice by the Ultra Instinct sort of aura appearing around them. If you ever see a pal with that aura, go ahead and capture it. It's going to guarantee have one of these on them. And finally, from the disposable implants, like I said, from the Ancient Relic system. So we're going to start with, in this case, my favorite, since we were talking about speed, and that's going to be Dimensional Leap. Movement speed plus 50% at only an increase in hunger speed of 15%. This is like literally one of the best and must have on your flying mount, immediately putting it on a jet dragon and whatnot. That hunger depletion is negligible for this, plus the 50% is literally the highest of them all. So you're going to probably replace Runner, and you're going to be looking something like this: Legend, Swift, Dimensional Leap, and in my case Eternal Engine for a lot of extra stamina. However, I do want to go over some of the damage options we have here, because they are massive, but they do come with a big downside. Like Twin Edge Holy Blade is probably the best example, gives you a whopping 50% to your attack, but reduces defenses by 30%. So that is a big one to take. You're basically sacrificing 30% of the defenses. But to be honest, I would still take it because of the massive increase in attack. You can probably make up for it with, higher HP and maybe getting defenses from other sources. Or if your pal is already maxed out and can survive reliably well, I don't see a reason not to use this. Also, I forgot to mention all of these tier 5 World Tree passives have World Tree resources will not vanish when approached. I talked about this in the previous video. Basically, resources in the World Tree map will vanish unless you have one of these buffs on, either from these passives, from somebody in your team, or from consuming holy water. So that is basically how you don't have them disappear on you. Then there's also the defense version of this. Sanctified Meat Shield just gives you the vice versa of that, 50% defense at the cost of minus 30% in attacks. If you already want to use some kind of like tank frontliner and don't care too much about its damage while somebody else does the damage, this can actually be a pretty solid choice. Of course, it's up to you depending on the team setup. It may be worth it actually on some of the new high-end boss encounters on the ultra difficulty, like the 5 million HP one on the ultra difficulty may be very good for that. Then there's God of Destruction. This gives you both attack and defense, 40%, 20%, but max health is reduced by 50. I found this one to be the steepest price to pay, because like on somebody that has, I don't know, like 12 15k health, dropping that to just like 7 is actually a huge hit, despite the very tempting extra to attack and defenses. Maybe you can make up for it with other ways of, reducing or mitigating damage and just cranking that defense, but I'm not sure about the diminishing returns on it and if it's worth it. Somebody needs to do the calculation. If the defense becomes more important than max health at that point, it may be worth it to sacrifice it, but I haven't been using it personally. Now, besides Dimensional Leap we talked about before, we also have World Tree Seedbed, increases hunger depletion rate by 50% at the cost of 20% HP, and I'm going to cover it at the same time with the Hermit Sage. Sanity depletion rate 50%. Now, in the case of both of these, I never had any issues with them, maybe in the early game, but it just seems like it's so easy to deal both with hunger and with sanity drops, especially with some of the upgrades in the new update, that I just simply didn't find a reason to use any of these. However, what I did have a big reason to use at a base is the work speed plus 90%. Although you get a 50% sanity decrease penalty, I still think it's worth getting simply because of how easy it is to deal with the mechanics. So my opinion is that I'm aiming to have as many of my workers the demon hand on them as much as possible to increase that work speed, which gives me even more materials, which lets me do even more upgrades without having to wait that much time. So of course that's going to be a pretty big one already, and a big motivation to also hunt for these new disposable implants, either again via breeding or via the implants via the relic system. I already said in the previous video how useful the relic recycler is, so totally check that one as well if you haven't already. Now, I've also noticed that some of the old stats have either been buffed or slightly changed. For example, in the case of the burly body, or I mean the diamond body over here, we can see that actually both of them got a change. So diamond body got its defense a little bit higher than before. It's now 30%, and you get immunity to both flinch and to knockback. So it's even more desirable than it's ever been. Lucky even got a new update, so on top of the attack and defense it previously had, now it also has a 20% to extra work speed. So definitely something that makes it a lot more useful in the early to mid game stages. Yeah, you're probably going to use it even well beyond that because of this new change over here, at the very least until you can farm something a lot better. Now, there were probably others that I've missed over here, so if I did, let me know in the comments if there's any lower tier versions that I haven't covered in the video, and if they are significant or if they changed a lot from some of the previous patches. Do let me know in the comments. In the meantime, that has been pretty much it, and now you have a better, view of what you can farm in the new update for your pals. Do let me know in the comments which one of these was your favorite passive, and what are you aiming for in terms of builds for your best pals. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.